You've always been that person that always had like really beautiful like coats and stuff and boots.
Yeah.
Like I remember when we first met.
Getting to a point in my career where you start really getting feedback about your approach to things and like how you are around, you know, your colleagues and things like that.
You're like, oh, what? I thought I was doing good. Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. Do you think that you suffered from imposter syndrome?
I think...
If you love listening to successful women and their inspiring journeys, you're in the right place. So hit subscribe and like the podcast to help us shine a light on women's voices and their powerful stories. So join the movement, get involved, give us some feedback in the comments and who you'd like to see on the show. We truly believe that every woman's story deserves to be heard. Now, back to the podcast. Kia ora and welcome to Golden Glimmers. I'm Zoe Tomlinson-Rout, and today I'm joined by the incredible Rachael.
Kia ora, everyone.
So Rachael and I have known each other since we were about 14 years old, year 10, when I moved school. However, we do have like a cool whānau story that connects us together. Rach has been talking to her whānau about this recently, so I'll hand over to her to tell your side of the whānau story, eh?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a crazy story.
Yeah.
I think, I actually remember when our mothers first met, they worked it out because we had no idea that the other half of the story was the matching story. So the Christmas story for my family is essentially my great-granddad had actually volunteered and gone to the war. And so I think it was in Casino that this kind of story happened, but he and his team had been like separated from everybody else and had been like under heavy fire and were like sheltering behind some rocks and everything, and it was like a horrible time that they were having. And on Christmas Day, they were still stuck in this like muddy hole behind some rocks, and they didn't have, you know, the Christmas dinner that everybody else was having. And yeah, in the version of our family story, this like absolute superhero dude jumps in some sort of like small truck and like slings the Christmas dinner for these boys like into his truck, and then like drives like zigzagging to avoid fire, like drives across no man's land and like throws it out into the, you know, where these troops are sheltering, into my great-granddad, and then like zigzags all the way back, and like just as he's getting back into safety, they shoot out like the back two tires of his truck just to kind of be like, could have got you, mate, like you're lucky, you know, it's Christmas Day, we let you slide past. And then like that was the story that was told at Christmas about the kind of, you know, the Kiwi spirit and like this guy who'd like driven out and delivered Christmas dinner.
Yeah, and so that's my granddad. So my granddad and Rachel's great-granddad. And so my granddad went to war. He lied about his age, and he went when he was like 17 years old. But yeah, I mean, that's so special to me because Dan, which is my dad's dad, he's like my person, you know. I think in like families there's always like one person that there's that gravitational kind of pull towards, or soul contract or whatever you want to say, and my granddad was that person. And my granddad was like an old man, like even as I was growing up he was pretty old and frail and that sort of thing, but I'd always like pull up this one little like wooden stool and just sit with him, and it would always take like 5 hours for him to spin like a 30-minute yarn, but I was there for it, you know, and we'd go for little walks along the river and that sort of thing. But yeah, so, and my dad and your mum also went to high school together in Motueka. Yeah, which is another like funny little thing. So both Rach and I are like small town girls, and I think that, yeah, once, like I think we always got on, but once we kind of figured out that connection, it was all on, eh?
Yeah, such a crazy connection to have. And what I didn't realise, and my grandma was telling me the other week, so it's her dad that's in this story, and he actually hadn't come for it, like they hadn't left Nelson, so he wasn't in a Nelson like troop or whatever when they were over there. So it was just pure coincidence that he ran into your granddad who was from Nelson in this story. But then the crazy thing is they'd gone back home and like gone their separate ways and never seen each other again until a Christmas that they walked he had like moved to Motueka and he walked into a Christmas mass in like the RSA or whatever and saw your granddad and recognised him as the guy who had delivered Christmas dinner in the truck and was like, they always caught up for a drink every year after that, I believe.
Cute. I asked my mum, because I know that there are a few pictures of my granddad when he went to war, and I know that you were able to get your side of the one, but mum hasn't quite pulled through with that. But hopefully before this podcast goes live, we can just like pop up a picture of both sides of the family, because I think that'd be really nice.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool to see the people that are like in the story and where our connection comes from originally. Yeah,
and I think because we've been friends for such a long time, you know that I'm real sentimental about like these little things. I'm like, I don't have 1,000 friends. I have like a handful of friends that I assume it's going to be like we roll tight forever and nothing ever changes. And I'm like, I don't need heaps. I just need like those
the good ones.
Yeah. Anyway, let's get back to the script. And Rach, you've always inspired me. You've always been clever, you've always been hardworking, and I really, I saw you move to the UK and really put in the hard yards, and in some ways it kind of felt like a lot of our friends were out partying and, doing all those sorts of things. And I mean, we did our fair share, but we were also quite locked into, I would say, like serious roles from a young age. Mm-hmm. So I think we could always kind of connect and relate and kind of had these work stories in our early 20s of being like, what is corporate life? But also laughing at it and kind of getting it. But before we get to that stuff, love to start with a little bit of a mihi. So can you share a little bit about where you're from, what mountain do you kind of connect with, or river or ocean and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I guess, so I grew up initially in Wellington, but like where I really feel is home is when we moved to Mapua. Yeah. So for me, like my like bit of land that I really feel at home is actually Mapua Wharf. So there I've got like, beautiful sunny spot and also that like body of water kind of coming and going. Mapua Wharf.
Cool. Okay. And, I love hearing about people's roots because they shape so much of who we are. So how do you feel like your upbringing or where you come from has like influenced your journey?
I think, so my family, we've always had quite like a culture of talking about, working hard and playing hard and, how are we going to make every situation we're in like a win-win for both people that are, are there. Yeah. So, I think that sort of culture was like instilled in me from a really young age to, work hard and play hard and have fun and find the people that you want to be around you and make sure that you're creating an environment where they want to stay being around you. And
you're like, you really, like, I consider you from Mapua, right? So Mapua is quite an interesting place because there's a lot of like alternative kind of people, a lot of artists that are into like sculptures and all of that sort of thing. Lots of orchards and,
that's super diverse, like socioeconomic status. You've got like millionaires who buy their like dream home in Mapua, all the way down to like I was in school with kids who, lived in the campground and, came to school without shoes on most of the time and just that I think that diversity's quite stark in Mapua. Yeah,
you get there's like a little slice of society from like every touch point there, right? Yeah, cool. And people kind of will know you for your work and your career, but if you were to describe yourself in your own words, like outside of titles, how would you introduce yourself?
Do you mean in terms of what my career is without the job title?
Nah, like not so much the career, like who are you?
Okay. I'd say I'm quite a creative person, but very, like we talk about people who are like thinking driven versus feeling driven. I'm definitely spend most of my time in that thinking driven space. So I think that's where I really enjoy the creativity to almost switch that off and like go into a feeling driven territory. I always used to get teased by you and some of our other friends, like rational Rach, with that sort of clear way of looking at things and like digesting situations and having a just calm opinion on.
Yeah. But everything's very thought out, eh? Like you're not someone that shoots from the hips. I feel like you've got a plan in place and it's broken down into like steps and
Yeah.
and even if like, you know, there was some sort of drama or whatever, you would be the one person that was able to like, I don't know, like digest it differently and probably help us see it from like a different lens and that sort of thing. But no, I don't feel like anything was ever too much of a problem either.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Kept any of those problems. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I can quite quickly like switch something that's like the emotional thing into, okay, like cool, what is the next steps that we need to take for how we get through whatever the situation is?
I forgot about rational, Rach. I'm sorry if that hurt your feelings, but I wish someone would call me rational Zoe, but I don't think it's going to happen. So if we start at the beginning, can you tell us about your early years? Did you envision yourself doing what you do now?
Yeah. Yes and no. I didn't know the job title, and I didn't necessarily think it would have to be in the UK. So I guess good context that I live and work in the UK now. So this is just a trip home and like amazing timing that I can come and chat with you. But yes, in terms of what my everyday looks like, I live by the sea, which I absolutely love. You know, I'm able to commute to my career, so I feel like I have the balance of the lifestyle that I want and the career that I want. I work in marketing partnerships specifically, so that's really about you know, taking on multiple people, understanding what their objectives are, finding something that is a solution for all parties or, you know, both businesses. So all of those elements to it, I think I did anticipate that might be what it looked like or what I wanted it to look like. But yeah, I wouldn't have necessarily known like industry or job title or...
Not as a kid, eh? Like as a kid you knew you were creative, but in high school you were pretty certain that getting down like into the marketing space was what you wanted to do, eh? And through uni you were definitely on the mission.
Yeah, I think
like
by the time I got to uni I was really like, focused on marketing.
Yeah. I think it's funny, because I think that all of the people that work in, shouldn't say all, that's a big generalization, but a lot of the people that are in marketing now, in whatever shape or form, there might be like advertising or whatever, a lot of those kids would have started off as like scrapbook kids, eh?
Yeah, I was literally a scrapbook kid.
Same. At Dan and Mary's, at my grandparents' house, I literally had like a little table in the lounge with a little seat, and like my grandma just collected magazines, and that's what I did like for hours. So that's why I think that social media is also not that foreign to us, right? Because it's just like a digital scrapbook, really.
Definitely.
We were the kind of kids that would spend hours doing like our photo albums and stuff.
Going back through like my, you know, up in the loft at my parents' like school books and everything, every cover is like scrapbook and Durasealed over the top.
Yeah. Which is really cool. Was there a defining moment that made you take a leap into your current path?
I think there's probably a couple. I guess to end up in marketing specifically, I did like a work experience afternoon with one of my uncles, and he at that stage and for most of his career worked in marketing. And I don't even really remember what it was that I did with him, but I just remember being so inspired by like the pace at which he worked, and he sort of had a couple of different meetings and was like being pulled into this conversation, and I could tell people really respected him. And I think that sort of lit my fire a little bit as to I want to be respected like that, and you know, I want to be involved in fast moving dynamic business, and you know, I want to be like integral to so many different parts of projects and things. So that I think that sort of set me, I guess, in the trajectory for being really interested in what a career in marketing could look like. In terms of the UK, it was like just almost a coincidence, I guess, that I ended up in the job there and staying for the time that I have. So I left when I finished uni. I was applying for like my first career job, I guess, and I thought, okay, cool, I'll apply for some roles in Wellington and Christchurch and Auckland and see where I get the best opportunity, and that's the city I'll move. And I'd always had in my mind that I wanted to move to London as well at some stage, but I didn't think it would happen for me straight away after uni. So I thought, okay, I'll apply for a couple of roles in London and like hopefully get some interviews and use that as like guidance for what I could focus on whilst I was building that, basis of a career before I move. But I had a couple of interviews and got offered 2 roles, and then like less than a month later was on a flight to move to London.
I remember that because I was so dark, like, and that's so selfish, but it was like yourself, myself and Morgan were all in Christchurch, and we were hanging out quite often. It was really nice, because I had moved, come from Dunedin, and
Morgan had only just got there.
Exactly. So very selfish moment on my behalf, but I was like, oh, what do you mean? I thought you were gonna stay here, and it happened real fast.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, I pretty much the first interview I had with the job I ended up taking, the guy who interviewed me said on the call, I'm going to hire you. I remember thinking at the time, there's no way that you have the authority to just make that decision off the back of one Skype call.
You should probably talk to HR.
Yeah. But anyway, I was like, yeah, cool, great, let me know what needs to happen next. And then ended up having a Skype call with his manager that evening, and I'd literally got into bed and was I don't know, probably watching Game of Thrones or something like that, whatever it was at the time. And had a message come through from his manager being I've heard about your interview, can we have a call now? So I had to do the whole process of getting back out of bed, getting dressed again, get ready for an interview.
Out of your robe and face mask and stuff, I know.
Pretty much, yeah.
Now I'm wearing my blazer.
Yeah, so I had the second interview, and then less than a day later just ended up having a phone call from the general manager who was American living in the UK, and he kind of rang to just be do you know what you're getting yourself into? Are you serious that you want to drop everything and move here? I think he was checking really on my behalf as much as the businesses. But I had a really good chat with him and was no, I'm serious, I'll come. And he was okay, well, book a plane ticket then. So I did, and then within a month I was kind of landing in London and showing up at the office pretty much with a backpack. And
did you have anyone over there at that time? I can't remember.
A couple of people, so a few people that I knew from uni the year ahead of me lived there already, but basically no, not anyone that I could go and stay with or whatever. I got a sublet for another Kiwi girl's room. She was going travelling in Europe for a couple of months. I sublet her room that I just found on Kiwis in London Facebook page and moved in, had a few coat hangers in her wardrobe kind of thing, and that was how I started.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that job?
Yeah. So I initially started was digital marketing exec in a marketing agency, so a full service agency, which was really cool. It meant I got to do a whole range of different things. It was a new role as well. They hadn't really had someone in that position, so I was lucky in the sense that I could shape what I wanted my everyday to look like to some extent. I just threw myself into as diverse as possible. Working on email marketing campaigns. I was hands-on social media, very cool initial projects I got to work on, Rugby World Cup 2015.
Tell us about that. What does that include? What would your contribution look and feel like for something so huge like that?
Yeah, so our client, the agency's client, was MasterCard, who are a huge sponsor.
That's right,
of Rugby World Cup. So I did things they were running with a pizza brand, a nationwide pizza brand. They had a big sort of spend and win promotion, and we were building an app that you could look at where the different pizza locations were and then go in and spend on your MasterCard and have a chance to win Rugby World Cup tickets. So I was doing things uploading the location of every one of these pizza outlets in the UK into the back end of an app. Cool. So working with the developers and learning about that.
Would you go to the meetings where that idea is kind of thought of, or
yes.
Or was that
Yeah, not that one specifically. One that I did get to do that with was we were doing almost a Where's Wally type map that people had to guess how many rugby balls, or find the rugby balls on the map, and then they could enter that competition and again chance to win like box tickets for Rugby World Cup. And I came in and that idea had already been approved, but they didn't really know yet how they were going to roll out across different channels. So I, in the context of social media, has sort of come up with the idea of doing like multiple clues that we could like leak out over social over a series of, a couple of weeks to give people little prompts for zooming in on particular places where some of the more obscure rugby balls would be, and having little like rugby reference puns and things like that.
Yeah, that's so cool. And because like all of that stuff is like really normal now, those sorts of campaigns and stuff.
Yeah,
but we're
it's
talking like 10 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And so like social media and everything has changed so much in that time. So you were like really at the front end, kind of in the trenches of being like, no, social media is so important and like this is the future of marketing and that sort of thing. Hey, so as much as it would have been like cool being in then that sort of environment, I'm sure at times it was like a little bit challenging as well, especially working with clients that aren't necessarily marketing people, but they're, key stakeholders and projects and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
right?
I think I was quite lucky from a client point of view. I was mostly working with marketing, like clients who were marketing people. But even then they sort of needed support to help convince their stakeholders that going all in social media was a good idea. And there was a lot of nervousness around how a brand like MasterCard could show up in a like relatable way in social media. You couldn't be too funny, or you couldn't be too, like obviously not too risque, or even being like a bit cheeky. There was nervousness around. So it was quite a journey that, not just me, the whole team had to take to, ensure that all those stakeholders felt confident in what we were doing, like to be able to do reactive tweeting, responding to what was happening in the games and things like that.
Yeah.
It was a huge effort on a lot of different people to get stuff like that over the line.
Yeah, I think that job that you had there was so interesting. Can you give us like a few more like little stories of campaigns that you might have been part of or that sort of thing?
Another one, and just because of what happened, I probably can't share exactly what the campaign on the client was, but I was working on a competition, like a big event, at which some winners were going to be announced at that event during a live TV show. And for my client, we had prepared different versions of creative that was going to go up at the big screens in Piccadilly, with all the different possible variations of who the winner could be. So we had all these different assets prepared in advance, and we wanted to be able to get it live, as soon as possible once that winner had been announced. But the way those screens work is they change like every hour on the hour. So you can't just, be like 5 minutes past, this is the winner and it needs to go up now. You've missed your slot. So I had this like timing plan down to the minute of like when I needed to know what the winner what it was. All of it should work fine, right? But on the night, of course, like someone's dropped the mic and, one of the performers has done something and the show's running, 5 minutes behind what it should have been. And so I was standing at the back of the event waiting to hear the winner so I could text to confirm to the team who were putting their videos on the screens, like which is the right video to put up. And the clock is ticking down. And we had a backup video in place, but it was nothing to do with the event, just a boring classic product campaign.
Just to fill in.
And there was another Kiwi who worked as part of the event team. So he knew who the winner was going to be. He'd found out, 15 minutes earlier that night. So I stood at the back with him and I was sort of saying, right, at this exact time, whether or not it's live on the show, I need to know the winner, or we're just running the product video and that's it. And, we can't then run the winner at 5 past. So we're just both standing there knowing that the clock is ticking and we need to make this decision. And in the end, he just leans over and whispers in my ear who the winner is. Within seconds, it's announced on the TV anyway, but I'd got the text gone by then, like the screen team were loading up the right video by then, everything went seamlessly, but I don't think I've ever sweat so much on a campaign.
I was just envisioning that. I was like, you would be sweating, and just that like almost like risk factor of like, oh, how about if it's not quite right or whatever.
Yeah. Never have I looked at like the same pieces of content over and over again in my life to just like check every letter, every single thing.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Was there like a hero or a mentor or a major influence in your life that has kind of given you some leadership and helped kind of shape your journey?
Not one person, I think. I've always had a tendency to like look at people around me who inspire me and like curate the bits of them that I want to like take into myself. So yeah, I'm really lucky with who I've had be part of that journey. It's a cute answer, but my mum would be my first.
Yeah.
And like she had an amazing career and then decided that she wanted to be a stay-at-home mum with us kids and had that option, I guess, to go back to an amazing career and had always been quite clear about her decision and the career that she had and things like that. So
just want to share a little bit about what your mum did in her day. Yeah.
So she had actually, she worked in multiple different roles, but she had ended up in a similar, I guess, HR function where she was basically helping, choose really senior people to move into senior roles when there was things like acquisitions or restructures or new spot became available at that really senior level. She was a core part of deciding how that team would be structured and who would be the person that would sit in some of those top roles. So super interesting, like very kind of psychology based and really human skills based.
Yeah, and that is your mum to a T. I actually remember talking to your mum when I had like changed from kind of going down the social working kind of, direction that I was heading and going more towards that career practice and, trying to help people get into roles and understand what like sets them on fire and stuff like. And I actually had forgotten about that until you were mentioning it. And I was like, yeah, actually Lils would have been a inspo for me totally as well. And, so like she was also the one like who had a bit of a money conversation with me as well around what earning potentials there were in spaces and stuff. But yeah, I'll always remember your mum because I remember like there was this side of her which she had like made it to the top of the ladder within the corporate setting, but she was also like super wholesome and you guys like I'll always remember your pantry. It was like nobody else's. Everyone else's pantry has just like rice bubbles on the ground and like just like packets of stuff everywhere, whereas your pantry was like now
decked out.
Yeah, and it was like Pinterest goals, like I know that the Kardashians now, if you like, they open their pantries and they have all of the containers and they're all labeled and stuff. That was your pantry, eh?
Yeah, and it was like my entire life. I can't ever remember not having a pantry like that.
Yeah, like but super organized and slick and very wholesome. That was your house, eh?
Yeah, every ingredient. Yeah.
And then how about like other mentors or managers or whatever outside of your mum? Was there anyone that like you kind of buddied yourself up with during the journey?
Yeah, definitely. So when I first started at the agency, I've always had really great line managers, but just by coincidence until recently, I've always had males as line managers. So I've looked up to them and learned a huge amount from them, but I've then, with that curating people side of myself, kind of gone out and sought additional like females that I wanted to use as references for how I wanted to be as I progressed.
Totally, yeah.
So when I started at the agency, there was another Kiwi who worked there. She was a really successful woman, like, working in a marketing role, running a team. And I always had really, really valuable conversations with her about, how to progress within the agency, what I needed to do to be able to, get sponsored to move off the visa that I had started with to get into a sponsorship visa, what things I needed to do to sort of make myself indispensable to be able to, need to stay in the UK. So I had her,
What was her name?
Annalise.
We should shout her out.
Yeah.
Thank you, Annalise.
Yeah, thank you, Annalise. So yeah, that was really valuable advice that she gave me. And then there's multiple other women that I've had within my career, both clients that I've had who've sort of either taken a shine to me or seen potential in me and, you know, pushed me to take more responsibility on their projects and, you know, pushed some of the senior people within the agency that they wanted to see me more and, you know, have me more involved in their work. So yeah, I'm really lucky with both within, you know, the company that I worked at, but also the company I was working with as well.
Nice. So if you had to describe your approach to life and work in a single quote or motto, what would it be? Like, how has it helped you through tough times?
Yeah. I think I may have mentioned it earlier actually, but work hard, play hard has always been like core to our family culture, I guess. But what that actually means to me, I think, has changed or in the last few years. I think when I'm in my 20s, work hard, play hard looks like, you know, working long hours and putting everything that you have into the job. And I know like you and I have a shared experience when it comes to that. And then the play
Burnout. Just run yourself into the ground and then, hey, on Friday you can go for shots because that's the culture of corporate, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's what it started looking like, I think, when I first moved to London and like through my 20s. But then more recently, I've really shifted that as like, you know, moved it to more of a focus around working smart is part of what that work hard looks like. And, you know, managing expectations and making sure things are set up in a way that I can succeed within them, you know, working in the way I want to work. And then play hard is so much more separated from my work life now. Like, obviously super important to have colleagues that you get on really well with and want to spend that time with and can have a laugh with. But yeah, play hard now is like really protected time that I can spend like with my friends, with my partner, you know, in my seaside town or like exploring the world.
Well, I mean, maybe we even talk on that for a second, right? Because you moved from London to where you are now. And so you went from like being kind of in the hustle and like that real London like lifestyle to, going beachside and stuff. Like, I mean, that's quite an adjustment, right? And that shows probably, I guess, like maturing a little bit as well and having different value in those spaces and stuff, but you've kind of traded your lifestyle in some respects, eh?
Yeah, definitely, and that was a super conscious choice. So I think that really came about during COVID lockdown, actually. So I was living in London during like the UK first going into lockdown, and my housemate was British, and she actually decided she was going to go home, like go back. We thought it was 2 weeks, and she had 2 hours in the evening to make a decision. So she was like, cool, I'm going to go home for 2 weeks. Will you be okay? She invited me to go with her and I was like, no, it's 2 weeks. It's fine. Like, I'll just stay here. So it obviously didn't end up being 2 weeks that I was in the house by myself. And initially you sort of scratch at the walls a bit, but then I ended up having a lot of time in my own head and with myself to start to really think about what I wanted my life to look like coming out of lockdown and where my priorities were now, and spending that time I think was actually super valuable, and I would look back on it now and say I really enjoyed having that time. So I came out of the first lockdown with a sort of slightly different set of values that I wanted to start moving myself towards. And then my partner, who I actually met through work, we were just sort of taking our relationship a little bit more seriously at that stage, and we're spending a lot of time going outside of London together. And this was still like during, you know, level whatever kind of mid lockdown
2
things.
weeks, it turned into 2 years.
So we did quite a lot of like when you're allowed to get in the car and get out of town, you know, low contact type lockdowns. And we went to the seaside loads and would just get like fish and chips and sit on the beach and just hang out. And it was during one of those trips that I think I just made a comment about like I could really see myself living here. And he was like, well, amazing, because I've always wanted to live in this town. So from that point on, we were like, cool, okay, how do we make this happen? What do we need to do with our jobs? Like, what's the commute like? How is this going to be possible? And then, we pretty much just
What's the
picked
town
up
called that you live in?
Folkestone. So it's along the Kent coast, in the sort of southeast of England, pretty much opposite the Channel.
Yeah.
Like you can see France from just down the road from our house on a clear day. Yeah.
And are you happy?
Absolutely love it there.
Yeah,
It's so
perfect.
cool. Yeah, and it's a perfect balance where I have that
Yeah.
at home, and then it's like a high-speed train into London, and I get into London and I'm like career rage.
Yeah, in the
And-
city.
yeah.
Yeah, which is really cool. And you have we bonded back in the day over Gossip Girl, eh?
Yeah.
And like, but
Yeah.
like you've always been that person that always had like really beautiful like coats and stuff and boots. Like
Yeah.
I remember when we first met, we were at Jess's one day and like all of us are wearing like hoodies and just jeans, and then you and like some shoes, but you had like this really cool long line cardi, like your jeans were a little bit different, and you had these really nice boots, and that's how I'll always remember you.
That's so funny. I know exactly the cardi
Yeah.
you're talking about.
So people often see the highlight reel,
Yeah.
but let's talk about some of the behind the scenes. What have been some of the biggest challenges or obstacles you've faced along the way? This can be both personally and professionally.
Yeah. Okay. I think from a professional point of view, like I have a couple, I guess. Getting to a point in my career where you start really getting feedback about your approach to things and like how you are around, your colleagues and things like that. I was always super focused on, proving myself in that sort of culture of like, I need to be valuable enough to stay in the UK and get sponsored and be, indispensable to this team.
Prove your worth.
Exactly, all the time. And so I think I'd like got myself into this headspace of like constantly feeling like I needed to do that and like be the loudest voice or, be the first one with the solution or whatever that was for the situation.
Yeah.
And I remember actually someone that I really respected gave me some feedback one day about like, you're at the point now, you don't need to do that, and actually like take a step back, create space for other people, like create an environment where you're like fostering that next generation of voices, teach them, and like, create more time and place for them to hear, like have their opinions heard first. And
I know what you mean, and I think like you might be a little bit different from me, but I think that was probably me being a little bit in survival mode as well, where I had this imposter syndrome that for at least a good 5 years of my career, where I was like, I knew what I was doing, but it felt like I was going to get caught out, like someone was going to be like, you're a fraud because I have 20 years experience and you have 5 or something like that. Like, and I think, you're a high performer. You, when you're so used to having these like achievements and that sort of thing, then when you get into your career, other than maybe getting a promotion like once in every few years if someone leaves or whatever, like you don't get certificates. You don't really know if you're on track or not.
Yeah.
And like also if you have like a manager that's not great, then that can also like make you kind of second guess your abilities and where you're at and that sort of thing too. Hey.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think getting feedback like that as well, it like shakes your confidence because like you were saying, your heart is in the right place and you're there like so focused on how you're being perceived and like what you're bringing to the table that when someone sort of says something that almost suggests you're not creating enough room for others, that's like,
you're like, oh, what?
Yeah.
I thought I was doing good. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I know exactly what you mean. Do you think that you suffered from imposter syndrome?
I think yes and no. I mean, I think everybody suffers from an imposter syndrome, and I was quite lucky in the sense that I realised that quite early on in my career, or possibly even before. And that's where, like, having conversations with people like my mum, I think, really help with that. So I think I knew that it was there, and I knew that people experienced that really commonly. I knew that it was a real, particularly female problem in a lot of situations. So when I did experience it, I had a bit more sympathy for myself, that was normal and that, everybody is out there just pretending that they know what's going on and how it's working. And, the only way to kind of move through that is to really just, carry on being your authentic self and contributing what you can contribute and shining a light on others who can contribute something too.
Yeah, and this chapter is so much better. Like, I honestly think, and maybe it's because we're in our 30s now, but like when I kind of understood that I was no longer in the trenches of building a career and I was more kind of nurturing and that sort of thing now, like it feels so much better. Like I love taking bringing Lakin to the podcast, and I love taking Anna to the breast cancer shows. And she's steaming garments and like helping dress models and stuff, but I love bringing them along, I think it's so cool. And would have loved to have Tilly here today because she wants to get into marketing stuff. Like I also love kind of being like, oh, I can actually introduce you to someone. Like, I actually have these genuine relationships now that in your early 20s, you want to get to know these people and build relationships with them. But then, you get to this stage of our life and we've got these relationships. And sometimes we don't even realize they're relationships because we just know that person.
They're just there.
They've been around. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So how did you step away from that role? Like that was, that workplace. That was obviously a super cool role and wouldn't have been a decision that you took lightly, especially being rational rage. So how did you make that happen?
So I think there was one day and one situation, I guess, that was like what sparked the conversation with my partner that actually I think this is it in time. But before that, I'd known I needed to change something and I was ready for a change, and what exactly that was I didn't know yet. And I kind of got to a point where one day he was like, you actually just need to do it. And we'd had the same conversation so many times that I needed somebody else really to just like confirm what I was saying equaled,
and it's going to be okay.
Make a decision and leave. And and he was obviously like, whatever support you need, I've got your back. And he'd left his role, I don't know, maybe just about a year before this, that, I made that decision. So he was running his own business. It'd been going really well. It felt like there was like a soft crash landing pad that I had in him and his business. So I handed my notice in, ended up doing like an extended handover period and multiple phases of what that looked like in different parts of my role, but again made something that was a real win-win for me and the business, and eventually stepped right out of the agency and was spending some time doing like freelancing and consulting and working for his business, which was brilliant because I could really take a step back and give myself some headspace. Again, I guess like that COVID headspace, sometimes I actually need to stop to be able to make a clear decision as to what the next thing needs to look like. So I had that forced stop, and that was kind of like March through to like the end of English summer really, that I was not working full time. I had some time in my own head to decide what my next role was going to look like and where I wanted to look for that and what sort of values I was looking for in the company that I work for next. By the end of that sort of summer, I was like ready to start interviewing again and applying for roles. And I was lucky. You saw all over LinkedIn, all people really struggling and having a tough time looking for roles. So I was kind of like, oh my gosh, have I made the right decision? Leaving a role that I did love. But a couple of interviews, found a company that I really like. The role that I have now really fits my strengths.
So what's your title now?
So I'm Director, Global Partnership Marketing.
Whoa! Director, shish kebab. Okay, awesome. Congratulations. Well, actually, I knew that you had it, but saying it out loud is pretty badass as well.
It's a very cool job title, and it's at a company called WorldPay, so part of the payments industry, which I'm really familiar with from my time working previously a lot with MasterCard. And it's a new team and a new role within that team. So it really feels like whilst we're in an established company, we're almost in startup mode
cool.
as well.
And you've even been part of like a startup like that before, right? Like the agency that you worked for was like so reputable and everyone knew and it was like top of its game. But this is a whole other thing, of like rolling up the sleeves and getting into stuff that you might not have necessarily thought you'd do.
And getting to design, the processes that we want to run things by and the, standards that we want to hold ourselves to. And it's, led by a female leader and, our like senior marketing team is very female heavy and it's really inspirational place to be working right now. And I feel like I'm surrounded by people who've got energy and, a real drive to make the best of this business. So it's really exciting and I get to work with a huge range of different partners, MasterCard included, so some familiar faces, which is always nice. It was cool having my first call back with some familiar people and they're all like, Rach,
you're like, it's me.
Hi. So that's what I'm doing now, which super fun position and really enjoying it.
That's so cool, hey? And there is something really to be said about the female environment. Look, I've really noticed that my career since like working for the Highlanders, working, in that construction space and then in the heavy equipment and stuff. I didn't realize how much of that I was missing. Like I was always like, I can hold my own in a male-dominated kind of industry or whatever. But actually, like, with the fashion shows, being able to collaborate with, like, one of the best hairstylists in New Zealand, one of the best makeup artists who also owns her own makeup line, Sonny, who's been doing fashion shows and worked on Top of the Pops, like all of these iconic people, Trelise Cooper's, like, probably the most reputable designer in New Zealand. Like, there's something so special about that collaboration and teamwork with
different type
females.
of energy.
Yeah, I'm so excited about it. Like, and
I love that for you.
It feels so good because I think that as much as I've had success in my career, being the only female in the exec team with 11 males or whatever. Yeah, it just feels different and clean and ready to go, which is super nice. I want to talk a little bit like now that we've kind of got to where you're at now. I want to know like what little things would you tell Rachael, little Rach? Wait, there's that picture of you and you have your rabbit.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? What would you tell that little girl?
Okay. So that's like quite young. That's properly little primary school, Rach.
Yeah. We can do a few little sections. We can do primary school, high school, and then maybe grad.
So I think I'd tell her not to take herself too seriously. And at that age, it's just like find what inspires you, find what you enjoy, do as much of that as you possibly can do. And it's those things that will end up in some roundabout way setting you up for your career and like for the life that you want to be leading, like inside and outside of work. But I guess as getting older, I think one of the best pieces of advice that I got when I very first started at uni was someone said to me, however many thousands of people that you see at that uni, most of them are going to graduate with a degree. A degree is, amazing and such a like door opener and leg up and all of those things, but there's thousands of people every year graduating with degrees. So what is it that you're going to do that's going to put you at the top of the interview list or, make your CV stand out from somebody else's? And I think that really just gave me permission to like seek out the other things that I wanted to run in my CV or, in my story alongside those degree things, those job title things. What are those other areas that turn you on of interest and passion?
Interesting. Okay, high school? Because high school was an interesting one for you, because you were, I'm just going to say, you're always like a golden person, like it was so, you were always super intelligent, always super nice, and you kind of did all the right stuff. But I feel like at high school you also got like, I don't know, maybe a little bit lost for a little bit there, like, and I think maybe it was because you had done all the mahi, if you know what I mean. You'd done the mahi and it was kind of like, oh, where's my treats? Like I'm keeping my head down, I'm focused, you know, you never went off the rails. Like, don't get me wrong, we like definitely went to a few parties and drank a few drinks and that sort of thing, but you were always right on track.
Yeah.
Do you think that like transitioning from high school to uni, it was just like time where you could kind of reinvent yourself and be a new version of yourself? Like, high school kind of drags on for a bit, eh?
Yeah, high school drags on, and I also started high school with a group of mostly people who'd already been to intermediate together, and I hadn't. Yeah. So I sort of came into this place where there was like the existing high school hierarchy right from the start, and I think that threw me for a while of like, where is my... How do I fit in? Yeah, like, where is my place in this world that's like so different from where I've come from. I came from like a country school. Yeah. And I don't ever think I quite like figured out exactly what I wanted my role in that to be, like the whole of high school really. I was, like you say, doing the things you're meant to be doing, but in a way half-heartedly, or like waiting for the thing that was like really my thing to own. Yeah. And I don't think I really found that at high school. It wasn't until uni that I found the stuff that I actually really enjoyed doing and the people I wanted to, you know, really surround myself with. And I was really lucky that I had high school friends that I still come back to. Yeah. But yeah, for me, myself, I don't think I would really achieve what I felt like I should have. Yeah. Maybe. Yeah.
No, I agree. And to wrap this up, I am mindful that we're kind of getting to the end of it, but I would love to know, like, what you've got this new role, and that's obviously going to keep you busy, but what is the next few years? What does that look like for you?
I think for me it's really starting to like build out what we want our future to look like myself together, and my partner, and and you know, we've bought our house now and we're in this sort of like
that's another high five.
We're you know, like projects for the house and what do we want to do, and you know, different spaces or like extension opportunity. You know, we're dreaming big dreams, and we're looking now at our careers as like, cool, how can that complement and like fit alongside the life that we want to be able to have, and you know, the people that we spend time with and the sports that we do, and you know, the getting up and swimming at the beach or like yoga on the beach and all of those sorts of things. Prioritizing them much more, and like who I am and what I want to do a lot more.
And is living over there, is that home now, or a part of home now, or do you see yourself like coming back here? Because I think that you're living overseas for the last, how many years has it been?
10 years this year.
Yeah. That's a relatable thing, right? Like a lot of our audience is based overseas. So what does that look like to you? And do you feel the pressure to come home, or do you feel like coming home is great, love to see everyone, catch up and that sort of thing, but after a wee while you're actually okay to go back and live that life?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I had a clear answer, I think.
Yeah.
So Folkestone and the UK definitely feels like a part of home, and I don't know when I would want to leave yet. But then I think there's always a part of me, and I'm so lucky to have someone who also wants to live in New Zealand with me, that I feel like I've got that sort of safe bolt hole of, at some point I can like pull a ripcord and come to New Zealand if that's what we decided we wanted to do. But yeah, at the moment, love what I'm doing and love where we live, and
the kind of life that you've really created for yourself, because a lot of people go through life and they kind of recreate what's been modelled to them and stuff. And I know your parents did do like travel and stuff, but you and Alex together have like really built a life together and that sort of thing, which is super sweet and nice. And it's as a friend, it's obviously like really, really lovely to see you like really settled with someone and embracing that.
Well, I have to get you to come and visit us some stage.
I know. Well, let's look into the camera and shout out Maru and say, let's do it, baby. Rach and I did have and Maru had a week in the Philippines together, but it would definitely be cool to go over there at some point, eh?
Yeah.
Well, I'd love to say thank you for coming on the show with me. Rachel's actually one of the people that when I very first thought about going down the podcast lane, I shared it with you really soon into the piece, and I was like, I think I want to do this. Would you be okay to come onto the show? And you said yes straight away.
Yeah.
I had and I'll tell you off camera, but another friend of ours that I asked, and she was like, no, I don't feel comfortable with that and I can't control it. And I'm like, I'm your friend. You can control it. Just tell me what you don't want to talk about and no worries.
Yeah.
But thank you for trusting me with
Yeah,
this
of
story.
course.
And I can't believe how this worked out, because I don't think that doing it on Zoom or Teams or whatever would be quite the same as being able to do it face to face. And it's so iconic that it's season 2, episode 1 in this new beautiful setup, and we're able to do it together. So thank you for trusting me with this. I am super grateful. You are so badass. You really do inspire me, and you always have, and I think you've always encouraged me to push a little bit harder, and I love that as a friend, you've been able to hold space for me where I'm super sensitive and I feel all the things. And I think I've always talked to you really openly about who I actually am. I don't think we ever had those big facades and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But genuinely from the bottom of my heart, you inspire me and I'm so grateful. So thank you.
I'm so glad to be able to be a guest and feel like I can be a bit more of an open cheerleader of every conversation that we've had. In the background for all these years.
Thank you.
And you're killing it. I love to be in your slick new space.
Just one last thing. If there was anyone that was going to go down the pathway that you have, any advice?
I think just believing in yourself and just do it. Just get started and do it. Get on that plane or book those flights or, say yes to that Skype interview, whatever it is that's your journey and your story. You have these moments the whole way along where you're like, oh, should I do this? I'm a bit scared or intimidated.
Yeah.
It's just, jump in 2 feet, go for it. It will work out. You are in the right place where you are. Just do it.
Just do it.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you. And to the audience, thank you so much for tuning in. It's really exciting to be working with Plains FM and Tahu FM to put this together. It's 2 dream teams merged into one. But stay tuned. These episodes are going to come out every second week. They'll be available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Plains FM. Also, the whole episode will be available on YouTube. So until next time, ka kite, and thank you.